So, back in 2007, I experienced my first ever horror video game playing Resident Evil 4 on the Nintendo Wii. It was the first time I felt like I had my back against the wall, fighting for my life against hordes of mind-controlled infected villagers and religious zealots. Resident Evil 4 made me realize I couldn't blast my way through hordes of enemies. I had to properly strategize in order to successfully navigate through its zombie-infested levels and bosses. It was rewarding and had me coming back performing countless playthroughs over several years. Resident Evil 5 had certainly picked up on Resident Evil 4's new third-person shooting mechanic, but strayed further from its original horror roots. Instead, it focused more on the Xbox 360's online component with co-op play, action elements, and cover-based shooting. It sort of felt like I was playing more of a B-rated action film or one of those arcade-style shooters. This trend was even more evident when Resident Evil 6 came out and disappointed most of its fanbase. Of course, this changed when Capcom modified their formula with a soft reboot with Resident Evil 7. This time, Capcom went back to its original horror elements. Fans were reintroduced to claustrophobic, tank-like character controls and given a minuscule amount of ammo to get through each level. The twist was that it was now through a first-person perspective of a new character, Ethan Winters. Resident Evil 7 was a successful hit that the fans celebrated, as this proved that Resident Evil was now back in full swing. And Capcom immediately picked up on that success with its latest game, Resident Evil Village. At the time, I only knew we were following
Ethan Winters.
Ethan Winters, Mr. Winters. Ethan Winters.
Ethan. Poor Ethan.
once again, and that the setting took place in a remote village and an extravagant castle, which was all it took for me to want to buy this game. I wanted to relive the experience I had with Resident Evil 4, and my gut told me that Resident Evil Village was going to promise that expectation. I purposely avoided story details and gameplay mechanics, wanting to be completely surprised, and I'm happy to say I treated myself with the best experience that Resident Evil Village could offer me this past Halloween season. Starting a new game, Ethan narrates how Mia and himself were saved at the end of Resident Evil 7 by Chris Redfield and his squad of goons. Following the events of Resident Evil 7, Ethan, Mia, and their newborn baby daughter Rose have been relocated in Europe. Once you're done playing Dad Simulator with Rose, things unfortunately take a turn for the worst.
Mia! Chris? What the hell?
Sorry, Ethan.
What? Why?
I'm sorry, did I miss something in Resident Evil Slug Giraffe? Your wife is dead, and you're separated from Rose. The next thing you know, you're in the pitch dark with only a small flashlight and a trail of footsteps leading away from the crashed van. Having no recollection of what happened between the apartment and the crash site, you have no choice but to follow the footsteps leading you deeper into the wilderness to find Rose. Now, Capcom did an amazing job with this intro. Despite being outdoors in the wilderness, the flashlight is only capable of illuminating what is directly in front of Ethan, successfully recreating the tight spaces back in Resident Evil 7. Branches hit the top of Ethan's point of view, the thick snow makes traversing very difficult, and every step forward only signals the player that you're heading towards danger. By the time you reach an abandoned shack, it's clear that something's amiss, and you can feel just how vulnerable you are in this very moment. You have no weapons, and despite having opportunities to open drawers and cabinets that would normally be filled with ammo, your efforts are completely in vain. Investigating further, you come to a cliffside observing the once picturesque village with an overbearing castle in the background. Destroyed houses and hastily thrown together barricades only confirm your worst suspicions that something terrible swept through this town and to its citizens. Once Ethan finally finds what seems like the only living person left in the village, the situation grows only worse.
Oh no. They're coming. Who is? What the hell was that? You have a gun? What? Please tell me you have a gun. No, why would I? Take it! Take it! Help me, it's out there. Shit! What the fuck was that?
This is now where the gameplay of Resident Evil kicks off. And it's clear that this time Capcom throws you in the deep end of the pool. Even though you're armed, and Ethan talks about how in the last portion of the game that he had some basic army training, it's clear that he's in way over his head. You're not Leon S. Kennedy facing off against slow-moving zombies in a village. Instead, you have a pea shooter trying your damnedest to hit these evasive monsters. You are throwing out quirky one-liners like before.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
You are actually running for your life. You're forced to utilize anything to give you the slightest edge. Shooting an exploding barrel here and there, barricading doorways, and knifing sacks of flour as a makeshift smokescreen. If it weren't for the fact that you were playing as Ethan, you would think that this was a mission where you aren't supposed to survive. As you fight for Ethan's survival, you're taught the main mechanics of Resident Evil Village's gameplay. Similar to Resident Evil 4, you have a combat case that supplies your supplies, crafting makes a comeback from Resident Evil 7 to make medicine and ammo, and with picking up key items, you can examine them that may lead to other uses for unlocking different areas or combining treasures. Further exploring the village, Ethan comes across a supposed safe haven with what is left of the few remaining villagers. Unfortunately, Ethan doesn't receive answers interacting with them as they're just as confused, if not more terrified than Ethan.
Can someone please tell me what the hell is going on here?
We don't know. One day we were a quiet, devout village, and the next, the monsters came and attacked us.
This, I really found to be more terrifying than Resident Evil 4. Yeah, Leon does arrive at a village filled with mindless zombies, but you learn about the slow transition from a quiet town to a killer cult through journals and notes. Here, you have just as much information about the situation as the remaining villagers. Backed into their corner, the villagers are frightened and confused that their town protector hasn't answered their prayers.
Great ones, hear our voice, together as one in reverence. In life and in death, we give you glory, Mother Miranda.
Before everyone dies, Ethan does learn from one of the townsfolk to take 2 crests and head towards the castle. Of all the places, it's most likely Rose would be there. On Ethan's way up to the castle, he's captured and introduced to the Big Cheese. Mother Miranda, Lady Dimitrescu, Salvatore Moreau, Donna Beneviento, and Heisenberg. The most dysfunctional family in all of Resident Evil's history.
10, 9,
They're also fans of Family Game Night too. Escaping from his first encounter at the entrance of Lady Dimitrescu's castle, we meet the Duke, essentially the merchant of Resident Evil 8. He can provide you with new weapons, attachments for better weapon handling, recipes for ammo creation, and weapon upgrades. In addition, you can sell old weapons that you didn't want to use, and treasure. This was a missing element that I missed when I played through Resident Evil 5. I get that this was a streamlined co-op experience, but essentially once you and your partner finished a level, you could upgrade your weapon. Beforehand, I found it very odd and awkward because there's no explanation as to why you can upgrade your weapons. You just went to a menu and that was it. I prefer having a weapons merchant because it's an interactive component with a character in the game that keeps the player grounded in its story. Resident Evil Village's inclusion of a weapons merchant was necessary and improved upon from its previous iterations. The Duke isn't a silent character who only asks you, "What are you buying?"
what are you buying?
Okay, well he does, but there's more to him. The Duke also suggests to Ethan where he could find his daughter in the castle, provides necessary exposition, and assists in story progression. The castle reminds me of the halls of Salazar Castle, but it's clear how much has progressed since 2007. The amount of detail and textures and lighting create a wonderful sense of grandeur in Castle Dimitrescu, but with a strong sense that countless souls were tortured and experimented on. Captured immediately, we have our first one-on-one with Lady Dimitrescu and with her 3 daughters. It's clear that together you're outmatched. Your best strategy is to take each enemy out one at a time. Castle Dimitrescu seems to have a great balance of combat, puzzle solving, exploration, and horror elements.
What the hell?
It's clear the portions of the castle that you are exploring aren't nearly as huge as it appears at its first glance, but I would say that this is a fine example of quality, not quantity. As Ethan, you crawl through maintenance areas, secret tunnels, blood-filled storage rooms, jail cellars, rooftops, the list goes on and on. Thankfully, every setting doesn't overstay its welcome. Our first encounter with one of the daughters, Bella, chases Ethan down to the basement where he needs to make his way back up to the main hall. You can't fight her as bullets have no effect at this current time. When you see her for a second time, your only choice is to run past her as far as you can. Trapped, you watch as Ethan tries shooting Bella again in a staged attack sequence.
Bullets cannot harm.
We know as the player that she received no damage. Since the bullets went right through her body, those bullets shattered the window behind her, letting in frigid winds. This causes Bella's body temperature to be lowered and reveals to us the player that freezing temperatures weaken her body so she can take damage. A weakness revealed to us through a cutscene more or less. Honestly, one of the few things I didn't like about the castle. Our first mini-boss encounter, and the answer is force-fed to us before we even tried to fight her, in what is clearly the boss arena. Even if it wasn't too obvious that freezing temperatures weren't their weakness, a hint could have been dropped before the first battle. In fact, you learn about the daughter's origin story after you kill off Bella. I can forgive this though, because the next couple of battles with Cassandra and Daniela have you figure out how to weaken the sisters with the freezing temperatures outside of the castle. Of course, it's not that difficult to figure out how to weaken the other sisters, but it's not the same solution as when you fought Bella. After you kill Bella, traversing the castle becomes much more dangerous. Lady Dimitrescu roams the majority of the main hallways and chambers in order to hunt you down. At the time of this recording, I've done about 3 full playthroughs of the story mode, and each time I have found that this mechanic still terrifies me. There are safe rooms where Lady Dimitrescu cannot enter, but that fact never really mattered to me. Her heavy footsteps reverberating against the stone walls were a constant reminder that this was her castle, not Ethan's. I always felt that I was in danger, no matter how well I knew the layout of the castle. Battling Lady Dimitrescu isn't a small feat either. In her true form, Lady Dimitrescu is powerful and nimble at the same time. She's able to burst through walls, lunge across the straight paths in the arena, and fly. It's a balanced combination where you need to keep your distance. Too close, you can't get in your shot, but too far and your shotgun will make much of an impact in the battle. Only after you kill off Lady Dimitrescu, Ethan finds a mysterious yellow flask. Not sure what to do other than to carry it with him, Ethan continues his way out of the castle. It was clear that Rose was no longer in there. Ethan then traverses to the area known as the ceremony site. Meeting up with Duke again, we learn that a part of Rose was indeed inside of the castle.
Why, you have your daughter right in your own hands.
What are you saying?
Take a closer look. That flask seems to contain her head.
No. What?
Rose is...
Don't say another word!
The Duke informs Ethan that Rose can still be saved as long as he finds the other flasks. The only problem is that they're all in possession of the other family members. Ethan must now face off against Beneviento, Moreau, and Heisenberg. The House of Beneviento was next on Ethan's journey. You're welcomed by a forest of hanging abandoned dolls and mirages of Mia.
Rose feels different. Ethan, you have to fix her.
Although the House of Beneviento is small, its focus is mostly on scaring the player. Ethan appears to find the second flask on the lap of Beneviento's abandoned doll. When you attempt to take the flask, the lights go out and you're left standing with what is a life-size mannequin that looks like Mia. Your weapons have been taken away, and you're left with only your flashlight. Now, I love this portion of the game since there are only puzzles to be solved with no action sequences. The purpose of these puzzles are meant to mentally weaken and wear down Ethan. The mannequin has an uncanny resemblance to Mia, and to add to insult, a picture of Mia's corpse is placed next to the bandaged mannequin. Each puzzle solved rewards Ethan with a recorded message of Mia crying on the radio.
I can't do anything. Anything but this.
Here, I definitely felt like I could understand what it was like playing the Silent Hills demo, PT, on the PS4 after this experience.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Once you do make it out of the basement, you participate in a game of hide and seek to hunt Beneviento. Each location Beneviento floats off to, you have a limited time to find and stab the doll with a pair of scissors you found in the basement. If you run out of time, a gaggle of dolls attack Ethan. Beneviento is the shortest portion of this game, but I loved every minute. Again, it was a perfect example of quality, not quantity. Before fighting Moreau, Ethan meets Chris Redfield again.
It'd be a shame if something happened to you now.
Sure, Chris. Why not? You killed Mia. Now do me and finish the job.
You stay out of our business, Ethan.
What business?
I want you!
Now, Chris could have killed Ethan in this moment, but instead, Chris pushes Ethan out of the way of what is a mysterious fish monster. Moreau's portion of Village, I would say, is most like a platformer. Once you escape his entrapment, Moreau transforms into a giant fish monster in the water. Once Moreau is swimming around to attack Ethan, you need to shoot down platforms, time when Ethan moves in order to avoid Moreau's attacks, hit switches to cross electronically timed bridges, and lastly, collect a key to power the dam in order to open its doors. This drains the water in the lake and weakens Moreau. You follow Moreau to the boss arena to kill him off. This battle is pretty similar to Dimitrescu, but Moreau is somewhat slower. The arena allows you to run around corners to lay mines or to position yourself to shoot a red barrel at the right moment to injure Moreau. The fight is more straightforward than on Dimitrescu's tower, as there is more room to navigate and shoot Moreau when he climbs on top of rooftops to expel acid rain. Kill off Moreau, and now you have 3 out of the 4 flasks. Before returning to the ceremony site, Heisenberg calls out a truce.
But what's the plan when you have all 4 flasks?
What are you trying to get at?
I could lend you a hand.
Not trying to get on my good side?
Now don't get cocky. I'd kill you if you weren't worth the trouble. There's a stronghold not too far outside the village. Go there and get my flask. Do that, and you pass.
A twist I didn't really see coming. You do have to prove yourself by getting the flask to where Heisenberg left it, which of course is at the heart of the Lycan's nest. But you aren't the same as you were in the beginning of Village. You collected new weapons, upgraded your gear, and stockpiled yourself with medicine. There, you get the last flask to combine Rose back to herself. Or, so you thought. Ethan goes off to talk with Heisenberg. Turns out Heisenberg wants to kill Miranda himself, and that it would be best to kill her off with Ethan and use Rose as a weapon in order to do so. Ethan disagrees, and he's dumped at the bottom of Heisenberg's factory, where you need to go back from the bottom level and back to the top and escape. Heisenberg's factory is the equivalent of Disney's Tower of Terror in the Resident Evil franchise. Drill-armed soldiers are surgically created on an assembly line, and you can see them in the hundreds. Not to mention they're wearing control devices on their heads. As soon as you claw your way back up to the first level, Heisenberg throws Ethan back down to the basement. Completely dejected, Ethan can only pick himself up and try his best to get back up on the first floor. But this is where we meet Chris Redfield once again and finally learn about the truth.
You are in the way.
What do you care, Chris? You killed my wife, you son of a bitch!
You think I killed Mia? That wasn't her. It was Miranda.
What?
She's a bioweapon. She changed her appearance and pretended to be Mia. Seems she also survived being shot, so now I'm here to finish the job. You take that elevator. I'll meet you topside. I promise you, we will get your daughter back. Together.
Damn straight we will. And when I find Miranda, she's a dead woman.
Ethan then takes the makeshift battle bot from Chris and kills Heisenberg. This battle is even more straightforward than with Moreau. Fire at the red lights, fire the rocket to keep Heisenberg back, and block with the chainsaw arm. Despite its simplicity, it was overall a fun fight with what I would say is the first time you're controlling and shooting a vehicle in a Resident Evil game. Unfortunately, this is a short-lived victory. Mother Miranda meets Ethan out in the field where he defeated Heisenberg, where she reveals she was a shape-shifting hag from the beginning of the game, and Mia, confirming what Chris Redfield had said before, and what I couldn't believe.
I will make sure to sample your blood for later.
The last time, I was able to contact Ethan. I heard Miranda's voice. She murdered him. So BSAA got here already? They didn't waste any time?
Mission adjustment?
No, doesn't change anything. Terminate Miranda and rescue Rose. That's the mission. And failure's not an option.
Let's have some fun, people. Like old times.
Move out.
Roger.
And yes, in yet another twist, we now play as Chris Redfield. This time, we're given gear that is made for taking out bioweapon creatures. You have an automatic weapon, a powerful semi-automatic handgun, grenades, and a target laser. And it's clear that you're built as a soldier. When Chris blocks or is attacked, he follows up with a kick or a strong punch. It was nice not to feel like you were on the back foot this time around. Chris finds the real Mia, rescues her, and brings her back to his squad, and like any great Shyamalan film, we're brought back to Ethan as yet another twist! Turns out, Ethan wasn't actually killed by Miranda. He had also been infected by the mold in Louisiana a few years ago. This mold regenerated all his wounds and would explain these life-threatening injuries being solved with some liquid alcohol. The Duke had brought Ethan from the field to the ceremony site in order to kill off Miranda and save Rose. Miranda is what I would call a bullet sponge. Hit her with enough damage, she cocoons herself and then shifts into a different attack pattern. We have ground spider, flying spider that dives, spider with molten balls, and ground spider that spits molten liquid out of the ground. I had trouble with this fight initially, but as long as you focus and practice your aim, you can eventually take her down. Miranda is killed, and finally, baby Rose is saved. Unfortunately, Ethan is the one that's out of gas. His body had taken too much damage over the course of the game, and you can clearly see the results.
Ethan!
Knowing that he would slow everyone down, Ethan sacrifices himself with detonating an explosion Chris Redfield had planted on before. Ethan's sacrifice allows Chris, Rose, Mia, and his squadron to get away. Now, you're left with a bunch of questions at the end of Resident Evil Village. BSAA sent in experimental biosoldiers to combat against Miranda, and you now also find out that Chris is no longer part of the BSAA.
BSAA. They've gone too far.
Seriously, what did I miss in Slug Giraffe? And in the cutscene with Teenage Rose, there will be a game that Capcom will probably develop where she's either the protagonist or an important character. Overall, I really enjoyed this single-player experience. It was refreshing coming back into a Resident Evil game, not only after about 10 years with some new graphics, but in a new perspective. It was gripping, engaging, and so entertaining that even my girlfriend liked being in the back seat viewing my progress. It was clear though most of Capcom's attention was put into Dimitrescu's castle and Beneviento's house. The castle and Dimitrescu were obviously the flagship of Resident Evil. Both had been heavily advertised, which caused the internet to obsess over tiggle bitties over there. The castle's layout was gorgeous and extravagant, and like I had said before, action, gunplay, and horror elements were perfectly balanced. Beneviento's was a welcome change from what I had experienced from past RE titles and in Village up to that point. I had not had an escape room encounter before, and I would have to say that this was a wonderful first-time experience for myself. Moreau and Heisenberg, I felt somewhat disappointed. Moreau seemed like he was underdeveloped and was added in for some additional padding, and maybe because this seems to be a theme with all Resident Evil games, but at this point it's almost cliche where you reach a factory when you find out that there's hundreds of inhumane experiments occurring. It did help though that the layout is interesting where you need to traverse the factory like a tower in order to create the key to escape Heisenberg's factory. After beating the main story, Mercenary Mode is now available to play. You play as Ethan in what I would call a streamlined version of the campaign's regions in the village, castle, and factory. You want to aim for a high kill combo to add more time on the clock and improve your chances of achieving a double S rank at the end of each round. Each level has a total number of enemies to kill off before going to the next area. During the intermission, you can either sell ammo, current weapons, or upgrade your weapons at a cheaper price than in the story mode. In addition, while playing through the maps, there are abilities you can collect that boost stats of either Ethan, his weapons, or negate enemies' movement speed. It's a different formula from the mercenary modes I played in Resident Evil 4 and 5, and I found it to be very refreshing. After saving ammo and scraping up just enough money for one upgrade at a time in the main campaign, it felt awesome being able to rip through a pack of zombies with an overpowered machine pistol with boosted movement speed. What I loved most about Resident Evil Village are the unlockables that incentivize replayability. There is a checklist of challenges you need to complete in order to 100% complete the game. These challenges reward you with points that can be spent in the bonus shop. Bonus shop items include new weapons that can be bought in the game, provide infinite ammo, and 3D figurines that you can observe in great detail. With new weapons, the story campaign almost becomes like a playground where you want to try out everything and play the game how you want to play it. And with each successive playthrough, you can play on a harder difficulty. This helps balance the playing field on RE Village's hardest difficulty, Village of Shadows. This is no joke of a difficulty option either. It took me 3 full playthroughs to upgrade my weapons so I'd be able to survive through the first major Lycan battle. Resident Evil Village recaptured what I loved when I first played Resident Evil 4. The more you play its campaign in mercenary mode, the more you're rewarded. As an adult, I have to pick and choose the games that I want to sit down and play carefully, which is why when I say that I will try and complete this game, I mean it. If you haven't played Resident Evil Village, I highly recommend getting your own copy and playing to your heart's content. You're not going to regret it. Hi folks, thank you all to those who have stuck around to the end of this video and throughout my first year creating content on YouTube. It has honestly been a wonderful learning experience for myself, and I hope to only improve as time goes on. My sincerest thanks and appreciation to those who have followed and supported me not just on YouTube, but on my other social media platforms as well. Between juggling my work, personal life, and health, it really does mean a lot to me. I'll be taking a short break for now, and I'll see everyone back in late January or early February for Season 2. See ya!